today is study the chart of an individual who's extremely interesting to look at. And I think you'll probably get more information out of what I'm going to show you today than all the charts we've done over the years. This is a good chart, and I think once you see how it operates and what the values are in this chart, along with the natal process of the underlying values of the houses, you'll notice I put them in here for you. We have Saturn, Jupiter, etc., etc. The first house is always about struggle, and of course the ascendant sign that we put on that is how we win over that struggle. Same thing with the second house, it's acquisition, and how we win over our acquisitions. Now, third house, how we reconnoiter our Lewis and Clark expedition in the world, so to speak. We go out looking, our moon keeps in memory. The sun, of course, is the information we bring in and harbor from our folks, from people that we're related to, and the foundations is the sun. It gives you a great deal of illumination if it's good. If you have a Saturn there that's negative, you get no illumination. You have to struggle through your own life. So it always can modify. But the sun is all about illumination. Venus is about fun. Mars, Mercury is all about the slings and arrows in life and how to learn how to avoid them, or how to remedy them if something is developing in us. So that's what the Mercury's about. The moon always reflects across to the seventh house. Now the thing about this is that we want the moon to reflect us in such a way that we're being seen in the eyes of our significant other in a positive light. But because we have our own struggles, they're going to be pissy days, and when those things show up, those usually what sticks to the moon, and eventually that's what creates a lunar enemy. Because now you're not who they thought you were, so now they're beginning to say, uh-oh, something's up here. So that's this moon thing, is how that reflects and how that works with you. Saturn, of course, the 8th house, we don't want to die either. We all want to get to heaven, but we don't want to die doing it. And so Saturn here again is the other side of that struggle. The Sun and Jupiter ruling the 9th house as the undertone of it is we illuminate our life and we empower our life by the fact that we get a higher education. And so the Sun here is the illumination that we get from that higher education. Of course, Jupiter is the broad expansion that we get by our head, getting more and more wisdom. Mars in the 10th, again, accentuates the desire and the competitive sense by which we need to achieve something in this world. It just takes a matter of time before you wake up to it. We all do. Again, here you have Jupiter and the Sun in the 11th house. Again, another illumination factor. Don't we get illumined when we go to the right people, the right organizations, the right friends, the safe haven that Jupiter and the Sun promises when we get to that position, how we feel good with our friends, and all these other things. Venus and Saturn ruling the 12th house. Of course, Venus is the lazy side, where we don't rather do anything. Is there a shortcut? Can I just not have to play with the game and get it done? Saturn, of course, says if you take the shortcut, you're liable to get caught for breaking the law, and guess what? You're stuck in jail, and the warden loves to deny you any kind of a situation. Now notice that the 4th house illumination process, where the Sun is here, this information gives you a wonderful situation because of the fact that what you learn in the 4th house is also going to be shown up here in the 9th house. So you can see that here's why we're talking about wisdom of illumination. And then over here we see the Sun is also associated with associations, friends and dear ones, and organizations by which we feel comfortable with. So you see how the Sun here is accentuating these 3 points in the chart. Same thing with Jupiter. It's an acquisition of material here. But here we see the acquisition of God and metaphysics and the concept of broader and bigger thinking. And here we see the concept of good friends, helpful friends, joyful friends, lifelong friends, and all of these too give us great benefit. Also, you'll notice how Saturn plays a role in the 1st house, 8th house, and the 12th house. And this is telling us where we need to learn how to avoid our pitfalls in life. So this kind of a situation has given us a ground rule base work by which we can operate a chart. Once you understand just that, no matter what you do with it, it becomes a mix and match circumstance. Now here's an individual that we're going to do today, and I wanted to show you this chart because I think out of all the charts we've done, this is so blatantly obvious that there's so much information from it. And it's so blatantly obvious that we can have a great deal of fun with it. First of all, this person has 8 degrees Pisces rising. Okay? This person has to overcome the obstacles of life through Pisces. But Pisces is one who suffers. It's the suffering sign. And so out of the circumstances, this person sees the world in a suffering nature. And they need to understand how to acquiesce to that, or how to try to overcome this Saturn problem by taking the ruler of this and repersonifying who she is. It's a she. So when we look at the chart, we notice that Jupiter is going to be placed down here in the sign of Aries, and that's the sign 19 degrees. That dreaded degree. 19 degrees Aries. So who is this person? This is a person who is very Piscean in nature. There's a lot of background drama going on about suffering and being a problem and overcoming these problems. How is she going to do it? By becoming an Aries personification. She's going to brave herself through this circumstance. So she's overcoming the Saturn obstacles in life with the idea of Pisces, the faith, the concept of that no matter how problematical things might be, they can be overcome somehow, some way. But when we look at Jupiter in Aries, we notice real fast that that situation is going to be through personal bravado. She's going to really push hard to make this appear not as it is. So now we look at this person, we got an idea that the background of this Aries personification is one of quiet desperation. All right? Now, to save you a little bit of trouble, I'm going to tell you that her guardian angel is Saturn. And the imprint of Saturn is Mars and the Sun. So the guardian angel, Saturn, says basically what? Settle down, gain control, get organized, and become a person who is within themselves self-control and have the ability to achieve what they want to achieve at a steady rate. And that's what we're looking at. So Saturn now takes a strong place in this chart, because the first thing this chart is being asked to do is to take control. And so when we look at this, we go, can Jupiter and Aries take control? Well, maybe it can. Maybe it can. Hopefully we're going to see if it does. So that's our first point. And this is what we're doing. And this is where you see me write these out one step at a time. And I do it every time I do a chart. One step at a time. It gives me something to do. All right, so we got that personification out. And the Sun's part of that. Well, what are we going to do there? Well, first of all, let's take the Sun, and let's see what it is she's going to have to take control of. The Sun, in her natal chart, is at 16 degrees in the sign of Leo. 16 Leo. Notice it's in the house of slings and arrows. But because it's so strong and powerful in its own sign, that this sort of overcomes those slings and arrows. They go by, or they're overlooked. And with this Aries, Jupiter Aries, brave it through. We can get it if we brave through it all. Tells us a great deal of how this person overcomes that Sun slings and arrows side of life here in Leo. But notice too that this is also altered by the fact that it's in a trine configuration with the Sun. So this gives a more forward individual than we see here. Deep in the background is someone who is 12th house oriented. Rather be a little bit to the back, rather be a little bit out of the sight. But this is saying, no, if I'm in the front, I'll have to play the forefront. Sun over here is in the background again, but it's taken out of the background by virtue of that trine to Jupiter. That's very important to remember. So when you have a 6th house planet, an 8th house planet, or a 12th house planet, if there are trines, sextiles, or squares to that planet, it will bring it out of hiding. That way, because they become friends. And so her personal activity with her inner soul kind of a thing brings that forward to us. So here we're now starting to see a powerful indicator right here in the chart to bring out any problems that the 12th house Pisces style might give, and the 6th house idea of what the Sun's doing here. So we brought the negative forward a little bit. So this is more of a positive chart, but with a background of problems. You see? That's a background of problems, 12th house Pisces. This is a background of slings and arrows, 6th house Leo. Slings and arrows, remember that? So, okay, we go, wow, this is something. So now let's say, what's going on with Aries, being that's who that person is? Well, we're going to take a look at this person and find out that her Mars is 8 degrees in the sign of Libra, and it's in what?
7th house?
It's 7th house detriment.
Yeah.
So this personification of the Pisces rising is going to be exacerbated by that Mars over here in the 8th house. Someone will declare her a personal enemy somewhere through her life with this, because this is negative. So the fact that Mars is here, she will get in cahoots with a personal enemy who will somehow hurt her or harm her or attempt to. Because that's exactly what this is showing us. And this is showing us through this reflection across the wheel here. It's not an opposition, but it's only 11 degrees off of one. Might as well be an opposition, isn't it? And notice it's an emotional enemy that's really going to churn the business of this. Here you see the Mars-Mercury idea personifying the slings and arrows of the sun. So now we have the Mars, we have the sun. What about the guardian angel? Well, this person decided to place the guardian angel in his birth in the sign of Aquarius. So her guardian angel is almost asked to step aside. Hey, get behind me, get in the 12th house. I don't need any of that. What I need you to do here is pay attention to what I want to do. What about me in the Aries part of the department? What about me trining the sun in that department? You see? All of this is starting to show it's a me against it kind of a circumstance. Me against it. Me against my own guardian angel. And Mars' sun is the imprint that Saturn said, I'll give you this so you can overcome it. But I'm going to give you a little bit of a problem. I'm going to give you just a slight problem. I'm going to put that Mars in detriment. So you have to work a little bit. Because Saturn wants you to work. It wants you to get something out of the game. Even though it's in its own sign, it's a good Saturn. And it wants this person to do good. So the reflection of that chart is asking for something good. Now, we know the moon is a greedy little planet. Can't get enough moon. That's why it rules the babies in the chart. They can't get enough attention, they can't get enough moon. So let's put the moon over here in Aries at 17 degrees.
Wow.
Can you see now we're starting to look at a circumstance by which this becomes really, really important. The moon is on the sign of Jupiter, in the sign of Aries, on Jupiter itself, the planet. What does she want more of? Whatever it is, there's not going to be enough. This is a salute to the gods, which I use every New Year. More. All is not enough. And that's exactly what that signature says. Anytime you see the moon Jupiter in somebody's chart, you can pretty much bet that whatever they're getting from whomever they're with, it's not enough. Because this is, I just can't get enough. Greedy, you see. Yeah.
That's a conjunct there. They're in the same sign. What if the moon was opposite?
We don't know.
Oh.
It's not.
Oh, I just didn't know how that
Yeah,
was.
right now it is. So this is what the signature is that we're looking at. The fact that it is conjunct Jupiter is simply saying, wow, more, more, more. Can I get any more? And who's the more wanting it? The personification, the person. She's the one that wants to get all of this. So she's the one looking, searching, digging, getting more. Wow. Now, we know that Venus is all about fun. Why don't we take Venus, put it next to the sun, and put that at 11 degrees in the sign of Leo. Can you now see that both lights are being strongly influenced by the two most favorable planets in the chart, Jupiter and Venus? Absolutely incredible. Can you see how much power this person can draw? Because these two are so close. And look, she can't get enough. So this is just like pulling and drawing and demanding without really having to pull, draw, or demand. Because these are absolute gifts. It's a gift. No wonder she has a Saturn as a guardian angel. All is not enough. I can't find enough fun. And the fun's in the slings and arrows side of life, isn't it? So she's got both of these things going that are actually working against her. I cannot get enough. I cannot do enough. I cannot be enough. I cannot. And yet, it's in front of her every single moment of her life. Every bit of this is just happening over and over and over again. Wow. Can you see the power? Can you feel how much power is sitting in this chart just by that configuration alone? You see this? Absolutely radiant. Now the interesting thing here is that this is 8 degrees. Let's put Mercury
Oh, wow.
on the 7th house cusp at 10 degrees Virgo. All of a sudden, you now get a lot of power with whom she can direct that to the Mercury in its own sign and own exaltation.
Yeah.
It's incredible. And what else can we put to that? Well, because she is who she is, we can add Pluto at 11 degrees Virgo.
That Mother Teresa. No.
Where do you get this much power?
A journalist.
Just incredible, isn't it? We got the moon conjunct Jupiter, can't get enough. We have the sun and Venus together, incredible. Can't get enough fun, can't do enough music, joy, art, dance, whatever that 5th house is going to tell us about. This is all what this is just by planetary placement. So we're seeing this chart that's incredible, incredible chart. Now what's interesting is that in the 8th house, we're going to have to put Neptune here because she's so famous that we need to use that. And we're going to make that at 12 degrees in the sign of Scorpio. And I think when I'm at it, I might as well go ahead and put the part of fortune here. And notice that they're both under the rulership of Mars, that's in detriment in the 7th house. So can you see now what the enemy is going to be doing to her?
Killing her.
Can you see the drugs?
Oh.
Can you see
Is
the
that
absolute
Whitney Houston?
idea of pleasure? Can you see the whole concept of what this enemy is doing to her? This is the man she married.
Oh.
And the man she married introduced her to this so she could have a net. In the film, actually in the entertainment industry, drugs is referred to as a net.
Wow.
A net. You have a net under you. Can't perform without the net.
Oh.
So here we see something that Bob Dylan had. Hey, we have Mercury on the 7th house. Wasn't Bob Dylan the voice of the generation?
Yes.
He was. And we have Mercury right there on the 7th house for him. Different set of planets, but basically that Mercury there would say a lot. And so we're looking at this thinking, wow, what kind of public can receive this and make this work? My word, this is an awful lot of energy coming out of the chart. Well, let's take some more look. The 10th house, the mother, of course, is
Sag. Yeah.
Sag at 18 degrees. And look at the perfect trine to Jupiter. Her mother, by the way, was famous. Her mother was well known. You probably guessed who this is by now. This is pretty easily recognizing that the fact that with all of this energy and power and that voice, you've got to be a singer of some kind. And with all that situation going on, this, that, and these, everyone saw her as simply the icon of her time, the 80s. This is a chart of Whitney Houston. This is what she was born with. Now the biggest problem of this, of course, that suffering part, its sub-ruler is Neptune in this case. So here we have it personified here under a negative situation here. Remember, this is an Aries under Mars, even though it's in a very negative Mars, that under Mars says that. It's a very negative Mars. And so that negative Mars becomes a negative influence. And that negative influence is seen very clearly. That's her respond to it. That's how she's going to take care of that. And so now we're looking at a chart where Saturn has Neptune and the part of fortune here. Control this, please. Saturn and Venus are here. This is saying control Venus, please. Saturn here is saying, please control the moon and Jupiter. Please control these. I'm your guardian angel. You must control these appetites. She couldn't. She absolutely could not control the appetites. Now, interesting. Notice that part of her problem is the fact that Saturn is in opposition to the Sun. See that opposition? So here we have her personification, her idea of who she is, the starship of who she is, the Sun, the queen of her chart, herself, in opposition with a guardian angel. She's not going to listen to it. She's not going to listen to that, even though she was raised in that genre. At 10 years old, that voice was starting to show up. I mean, she was really out there. And my God, when you look at her, beautiful. What a beautiful woman. But here we see that nice opposition taking place and going, wow, what is that about? The real bugaboo is when we notice that this is 12. It's involving itself as a T-square. And part of that T-square, 12 to 11, is really pulling in Venus, Neptune. So that square creates a new situation. It creates another problem for us. So her concept of fun down here brings us that square to Venus, to Neptune, and part of fortune under the guidance of Mars. And here we see that their opposition here brings in another thing. This is what she constantly complained about, that she could not get rid of this devil that was going on. And that was her cross to bear in life. She wanted too much fun, and this was one of the ways it was provided for. And so we look at this chart, and we notice real quick that out of the circumstance, all of this power is generated from here over to this house. These are the people who receive that. She's what's putting it out. See this power being generated here through her voice, through her appearances, through what she could do. Now, when we progress her chart, Venus is at 29 degrees Virgo. At 29 degrees Virgo means that Venus will change into Libra, for those of you who will, next year. Had she not had this unfortunate accident, next year would have been some form of resurrection for her. I don't know what it is, but I know this is true, because it's going to be going into the library.
There's a movie.
There's a movie coming out? Oh, well, and there it is, and that'll probably like skyrocket, and that would have gave her a new signature. She's a great actress. I mean, what I saw of her as an actor was really very enjoyable. So she sang well. She was the icon of a generation. How many singers that followed her tried to copy her? Clearest, purest voice you could possibly hear, couldn't you? We had a beautiful Mercury on the angle. Just couldn't do better. Had great people that knew her and helped her. Her aunt, godmother, and mother. All were famous. All were well known in their field.
They say she doesn't have any money because she spent it on a high-cost drugs and everything, her kind of lifestyle.
Yeah, well, maybe that could very well be.
She still has 10 million.
Because the idea
I
of
guess
her
she
money
has
is
several
here.
homes, too.
Yeah, and you do spend it on this. And this is part and parcel of what goes on in this business. If it's this good, it can be a little bit better. If it's this good, maybe I can make it a little bit better. This is all it is, and that's what an addiction. There's a movie out called Shame. And have you seen Shame?
I've heard about it.
Go see it. It tells you about addiction, and it'll pull you in, and it'll explain it to you really nicely. It's called Shame, and I think it's something that you guys really should take a look at and see, because it'll give you an insight as to how something like this may come out. I'm thinking If this chart was just switched a little bit, so Saturn could have a little more power in its own place, its own sign, in its own house, she may have been able to beat her demons. But then this wouldn't have happened.
Yeah.
That's right.
See? So we give, we take, we give, we take. We come on this planet to overcome a struggle. That's what that Saturn means in the first house. We come here to overcome the struggle, and whatever planet and sign that's in the first house, those are the signatures by which we choose to do that very thing. We're going to, we think we're going to overcome that struggle by doing whatever this requires us to do. And that's how we signature. So when you look at a rising sign, you're looking at literally the sign of a person who thinks they can beat their struggles by that sign. And then where the ruler is, gives us the next indication as to what's the complication that helps. Who's the helpmate in doing that? Here, her helpmate is Jupiter in Aries, but the helpmate is in detriment.
And the reason that they're a helpmate, because it's in that first house.
No, well, no, because the reason it's helpmate is Pisces rising, and the ruler of Jupiter is
Oh, that's right.
is
That's
in
right.
Aries.
That's true.
The fact that it's in the first house is accidental. That's an accidental dignity. Yeah.
How do you bring in then the imprint was Mars, and it's a detrimental Mars, so was she imprinted?
That's the attraction,
detrimentally?
yeah.
In other words, she was attracted to the bad boys.
Apparently.
I mean, so that's how you would work with that as an imprint?
Yeah, because this is negative. So she's got to overcome. This is her challenge. This is her guardian angel, and this is how she's going to work it. That imprint tells us how we're going to achieve this. And it's telling us that Mars is going to help the Sun somehow. Well, this is how the partner shows up. This will help you. And so the drugs are prescribed as this will help you is what she's seeing as her imprint. Too bad it was negative, but it was. And so this whole situation comes around. Can anybody see drowning by water?
Yeah, 15.
Neptune. This square is coming over here to Neptune.
Is that how
And
she
I'll
got it?
bet this is what I don't nobody knows it, but
so
I think
you're
she
using
drowned.
Neptune
I think
a
she
lot.
drowned in the tub.
Yeah.
Oh,
They say you can drown. They got one doctor said you can drown without water in your lungs too. That you,
Yeah, you did.
Yeah, you asphyxiate. You don't have to. So, but anyway, yeah. But I have a feeling that's what that is. I have a feeling that they probably found out that she drowned, and probably I don't know if it's an overdose, but I have a feeling that there's quite a bit of drugs that's involved. Alcohol, Valium is good enough. That'll get you under. And so I have a feeling that might be part of it. But you can see this T-square is a huge part of her life. You see that it's violating the guardian angel, and you can see that the help that she thought was coming to her by Mars and the Sun actually was what hurt her, because this is a detrimental Mars, Sun, even though in its own sign, it has her own idea of right and wrong, which she did. She was raised pretty strong in the choir and with her mother
it was
singing
in
in
a
the choir.
church. Yeah.
These things I do know. I don't know much about her because I wasn't all that attracted to Whitney Houston's voice. She, to me, was like a Barbara Streisand or Celine Dion, where they got a great set of lungs. They yell, and they can yell on key. So that's what I hear. I'm hearing
That's
yelling on
interesting.
key. But I will say this about her singing. When she was making transitional notes from A to B, she could put 30 of them in there. You know, I mean, she could literally sing a whole, what we call grease in this business. She could grease that note all the way to where she's going next and hit a dead key on. So she was really a brilliant, as you can see, this chart is a brilliant chart, a powerful chart. Yeah.
Could you explain a little more about the imprint and the Sun, you know, how they, so it depends on the dignity of your imprint and expression, or is that, it seems weird that that's how you're supposed to work it and it's negative, so did that mean she was just supposed to have more Saturn to overcome it?
Well, you can notice that this is in the house of Saturn. You can notice that this is in the house of Saturn. And you can notice that this is in the house of Saturn, which is saying don't do that. And so out of the circumstance, you're watching Saturn playing a key role here in this chart. And it's also the guardian angel. Now on top of that, the imprint is what you attract to you to see how you deal with that. And the fact that they're both negative tells us that's what she'll attracted her to deal with that. So her guardian angel says this imprint is how you're working against your concept of your life. How are you going to work your life towards its completion? Well, she did that. She's a huge star because that's part of it. And she did it. She was out in the public. And she did it. She married the guy she married. Yeah. She did what the imprint asked her to do. But an imprint is really based on, you know, like a duck sees, the first thing a duck sees when it hatches, that's its mother. Now it's imprinted. So it follows that. It follows that. So this is exactly what this imprint is telling us here. So Saturn is asking us to, in this case, be aware of that imprint, try to restrict it. If it was Venus in the imprint, now we would say, try to overdo it. We would literally tell her to overdo it. But Saturn's asking for a lid, put a lid on it. Yeah.
Even her family tried to get her away from him, and she...
No, they were tight. They were tight. They really were. They were tight. Yeah.
I'm not really sure about how did you get the guardian angel? How did you get the guardian angel?
22, 24 degrees, 24, 30. Any planet that's around 24 degrees or close to that is considered the guardian angel. It's the planet by which your highest ideal follows.
So the Saturn there, 19, is the closest to 24. There.
Yeah.
Closer than Jupiter. Is that 19 also?
Yeah, it is, but this is a little tighter.
Okay, and then why did you put Mars in the Sun under it?
Because that's the imprint. That is literally the lunar mansion. That's her lunar mansion, Mars the Sun. This is how she will try to overcome the Saturn.
So I missed something in the past.
Yeah, you have. You missed the sunset chart. It's the sunset chart.
You have to know about lunar mansions.
You need to know the lunar mansion. And I will show you that in a moment.
That's okay. Just
we
was
have
wondering
that
how
chart.
that was.
But when we look at this chart, we can see how she personified the chart and how her life
Absolutely.
was displayed by what the chart tells us is reflected.
And she was an attractive lady.
Oh my God.
Beautiful.
Totally beautiful.
Yes.
Totally. I didn't care how you dressed her or what you did with her hair. She just looked beautiful. She was one of those people.
Yes.
She just was
She had
tall,
everything.
light,
Yes.
good looking, sane. She has it all. And the chart says what? She has it all.
And more.
And still wants more. Has it all and more. And you know what they die with or how much they have or anything like that. You know, I mean, you know anybody who's made money in their lives and is still underwater to some degree. Okay?
I was just looking at the fixed stars, because that Mars is on the Widowmaker.
Isn't
in
it?
the Matrix.
In the
10
Matrix.
degrees Libra.
That's right.
So that just makes it just
Isn't that scary?
even worse.
Because this is. That's Vindia Beatrix is 9 degrees Libra, and that Mars is right there. So there's help, as we would say in astrology. There's some help in that too. So there's a sense of destiny with him. There really is a complete sense of destiny with Bobby. So out of the circumstances, that's who he showed up. And naturally she would have a great deal of interest in that Mars because of that Jupiter moon. A huge interest in that Mars. And a huge interest in the Sun because of Venus and the Sun there. So you have to remember the Sun and the Moon are always the king and the queen of the chart. They are the planets by which we need to really look at. The ascendant then tells us how the king and queen are probably going to act. And then the rest of the planets revolve around the Sun and the Moon and take orders from them. So everything the planets are doing for the Sun and the Moon in our astrological review. So this is one of the key points that we want to look at when we're looking at this. Cool. It's a good chart.
Yes, it is.
You know, I mean, everything about her right now is starting to improve with that 29 degrees Venus. It's getting ready to leave its fall. It's getting ready to get out of its fall and go into its own sign. So what does that tell us? When a planet is in a weak place, it's rolling along, rolling along, rolling along, and then it gets into a strong place. But this is what tells us how to invest in the market when we're looking at a planetary position getting ready to change. We've got a lot of people call you. I'm thinking about investing in the market, and if you see that the ruler of the second house is at a very late degree by term and getting ready to go to a much better degree by term, that's an upward movement. You go, absolutely. That's one of the key indicators. It tells us, yeah, move forward, because it's going to take you up. It's going to take you forward. You know, should I marry this guy? should I marry this girl? We look at the 7th house, and we see that the 7th house is just now leaving a poor situation and moving into a stronger situation. This is a good marriage. But if it's in a strong situation and going into a weaker one, a weaker term, stay away from that.
A weaker term.
Yeah, when you use the little term buttons that I
Right.
gave you, yeah. So
Yeah.
if it's going in a weak term, you know that. So in other words, if one of her planets was going to go into 8 degrees Libra, it would be definitely in a weak term because of the fact that Mars is very
I see.
detrimental.
I see.
See, now if we look at 8 degrees Libra, what term is that?
8 degrees Libra. It's,
Where do you get?
oh, it's right here. I'll just show you. It's on this little thing here. 8 degrees Libra.
Yeah?
Yeah, let's see.
Saturn's
Oh,
at 6.
yeah, it'd be Venus. It's going into
So,
Venus.
okay. So you see, if Venus is going to move into 8 degrees Libra, that's going to tell you that it's really going into its own term.
Yeah.
It's really getting stronger. But if it was leaving 8 degrees, going into the next sign thereafter, which I think is Mercury, now it's going into a weaker position. So that answer would say no. See? So the terms, we're going to have to cover these terms one of these days because
Yeah.
the terms in the chart are dictated by how these planets are in their position. Jupiter's in a favorable position. It actually trines the 10th house, wonderful place, and it trines the sun. She got a nice grand trine in fire. How in the world could she not make it? You know?
And yes, and
She's got all of this stuff going on. So when you start seeing part after part after part,
and Jupiter and Venus is involved in a way.
yeah, you got Jupiter and the moon and the Venus and the sun,
The king
and you
and
got
the
all
queen.
that power,
Yeah, the
so that
king and
her,
the queen.
her chart itself is reign supreme.
I wonder what they're going to find that actually caused her death. You said maybe drowning.
I
but-
think drowning, asphyxiation is it. I mean, she's found under the water, so it doesn't take much thinking, but the fact you look at Neptune
And
in the
maybe
8th,
because of her.
well, you got to kind of look at that. And the thing is that the 8th house is 27 degrees, isn't it? Yeah, 27 degrees in the sign of Libra again, which is ruled by Venus squaring that Neptune. So that Venus square Neptune in opposition to Saturn, that pretty well points it out that this is a pretty critical time. Her life was critical. She stayed on that critical edge all the way through.
And she wasn't aware of her situation enough that she maybe just sort of conked out in the tub.
I don't
maybe.
think so.
Well, she just slipped in the water on her own.
They don't know.
They don't know yet. We don't know
No,
anything.
no.
I'm just thinking here that
But
this
you-
looks like death by drowning or asphyxiation,
Yes.
because that's what this is.
But
That's
I
what
was-
this is saying right here.
I was trying to think, well, why would she just slip under there unless she was a little bit knocked out with her drugs
Yeah.
or something?
Or had some.
Yeah, I
Was
mean
drinking
that's
And especially the warm
And she
water
could have
would-
passed out slightly, you know how you.
She
Maybe
drinks,
make you
and
warm.
she had prescription drugs.
Yes, she had both there.
So she could have had something.
Yes,
happen
and she didn't
slipped.
yeah. I mean, if you take a Valium and a shot of whiskey, you're going to be in a great place.
Well, she had champagne and beer on the table.
Yeah. So there's a lot of things that we can conjecture all day, but this really gives us a clear picture that she was enjoying something that was
Oh.
Not
Neptunian.
good for her.
Yeah.
So there it is. And I know from somebody, I don't know why, I should really listen to some of these newscasts and stuff that's going on, but I did not want to hear one more time. So I turned it off.
You're
I just
right.
did not want to hear that
I
one more time, I realized it was a hit, got it. I did not have to hear it 29 times a day. So I just turned it off, and that, looking back, I'm sorry I did. But I do know that one of the bodyguards made sure that she never took a bath. And he also made sure that whoever was with her, she never had more of a 5-minute shower. She never went towards water that much. He was
Wow.
very, very wise man indeed.
He was her
Inspired
guardian
him.
angel. Oh,
And then who was left to take care of her?
the husband.
The family.
Oh, the family.
I don't think the husband was involved.
He wasn't, he's ex, right? Yeah, he's an ex.
The family now, and who's now her guardians?
The
Well,
daughter.
there they are. There's all the guardians.
Maybe she had an astrologer tell him, or he had someone tell him not to let her go.
I wouldn't be surprised, because we're pretty popular in Hollywood. You'd be
Her family
surprised.
was
Yeah.
You get a few of them under your belt, you'll have a lot of them come to you. I have a lot of TV personalities as clients.
Well, and they like answers, so.
Yeah, and they want to know what coming up, the new deals,
Yes,
new ideas,
yes,
new concepts.
yes.
What's going on. Yeah.
No, you should-
All right, this is Whitney Houston.
Yeah.
She was born August 8, 1963. For those of you who are suspicious, it was on a Friday.
And,
It was 8:55 p.m., Newark, New Jersey. And the moon is 1705 Aries, ascendant was 824 Pisces rising. The moon is peregrine, as is Mars.
What's on the fifth cusp?
Which one?
Fifth cusp.
Fifth house cusp is Cancer at 6 degrees. That's the house 5.
you can still mail
She
it.
was born at the hour of the sun, day of Venus, which of course is Friday. So again, that solar energy comes forth really powerful once more. So you can see how these planets really
She really-
start telling us a story. Once we underlie and go into each layer, go back, go back, go back. Because we modify it, we pull things out, and it gives us a whole concept of what's going on. The fixed stars are sort of interesting. You'll see that when you cast the charts. There are a lot of mutual receptions going on in the chart too. And the whole point of this chart is to show you, at a quick glance, a powerhouse when you see it. Here it is.
It shows two things. It shows her beautiful grand trine, but at the same time she had a powerful T there.
Check
And they
both.
and how they interplayed and how, I don't know which one,
Equal opportunity.
yeah.
One or the other will finally take over. You have to remember, in a chart, your Saturn is going to win at some point. You're going to get sick, you're going to be denied, something's going to happen to you. Your Saturn will win. The concept is, can we be prepared for that and move it around to where we can at least maybe avoid the deepest part of that. Right now, we're getting ready, well, for the last 2 years, Saturn has been where?
Libra.
In Libra.
Which was nice.
So what does that tell you? Watch your kidneys.
Oh.
Huh? You got kidney, you got a pain right here, go check your kidneys. Again, it might be something to do
What
with
was
your
in it that
kidneys,
makes the
isn't it?
kidneys come out? They rule what?
Libra.
Oh, they rule.
It's in Libra. The range, the lower back, and the kidneys. So if you got a problem, you go check it. Now Saturn's getting ready to go where?
Scorpio.
Scorpio. So what does that tell you? Take care of your colonoscopies. Get your stuff looked after. You know, get all this area down here, take it and get it looked after, because this is what Saturn is going to be doing in
2.5
Scorpio.
years.
It's going to be that area of health. Doesn't have to be. But if you know that this is coming, you know to take care of business before the thing comes about. And, you know, it's like the old saying, if a truck's coming, don't walk across the street. Wait till the truck goes by.
It's wonderful about astrology, huh?
It is. This is where the value of astrology shows itself huge, because once you can see what's developing, you're going to be able to work with this. You see, her sun and Venus played a very big role. Her Mercury, Pluto played a big role. Mercury, we heard her for 48 years, sing, 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 sing. Pluto, the final moments. Wow. It finally took its place. You see, each planet in a stellium will each take their place in turn. So you have to remember that. Somewhere down the road, they back off and they take their place in turn. So every planet gets to play in your chart at some point in time. The idea of learning secondary progressions, your Fidaria, learning how to look at your profection year, solar returns, these are the things that are very important to look at, so you can recognize what's developing. A theme comes out of all of this. And so once you see that theme, you can use it to your advantage. And this is why you're doing it. And always, 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 when a question comes up, cast a horary. You'll get a lot of information out of the horary chart, but you don't have to go winding through the other charts to find. If and when you do a solar return, always cast the Aries Ingress. And how does a solar return relate to that Aries Ingress? Because the Aries Ingress is where you live. And what's happening there is going to happen to you. And you're going to be part and parcel of your environment. So you want to cast the Aries Ingress. and see how it relates to you. Otherwise, you just did a solar return for the fun of it.
Well, I wouldn't know how to start with that. You just do
Yeah,
it for
0
that
degrees
year?
Aries.
No, for that
March
year?
20th,
Yeah, for that year you were born?
for the year
I mean, for
you're
the
doing
year, I
solar
meant
return.
for the year of the solar return.
Or
You
the
do it
place.
for that year, and then you use that.
And the place, yes.
Uh-huh.
The place you're at, or
Oh, so
Yeah.
if I
The
go
place where you're
home,
living.
We've
if I
never,
go
Now-
we've
home,
never done
I
that.
would put Laguna Niguel there and
And do the
0
Aries English chart
Aries.
for March
When
20th.
the sun goes into 0 Aries.
0 Aries.
That's the sun.
That's an
The
ingress.
sun, that will be
Yeah,
the solar
yeah,
ingress.
yeah,
And that is the spring equinox.
yes.
You use
okay.
that in every solar return.
Is that, which one goes over which and how do you?
How does it relate? That's what you're looking at.
Uh-huh.
How does it relate to that? Just like we do the weather.
I'll bring a set.
It's
So if-
just like we do the weather. Yeah.
If you were born in January, you do the previous year's
Yeah.
solar. Okay, just
The
one.
solar
that's-
ingress of the
yes.
year.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right, if it's before April,
Yeah.
I mean, March
Yeah, if
21st
you're
or
born
whatever.
March 19th, you need last year's.
Yeah.
uh-huh.
And then on March 20th, you
That's a good
need
point.
this year's. That's how you're going to work with that.
I do want to ask Diane.
Ask Diane.
No, she said something about a fixed star there. Do you have a chart where all the main fixed
It's in the
stars
book.
are in your album? I
in the
mean, in
book.
your,
It's in your book.
oh, which?
It's in your book.
Oh, okay, you have it.
Whispers of Calvary.
I do have that book.
And it's also
Okay,
in
thank you.
your moment,
I'll have to make sure I
the
get,
moment of
Oh,
truth.
is it in the moment of
It's in the
truth?
moment of truth, under fixed stars.
and that's that
So
book.
you have that too, yeah. So you have that as well. Yeah. I try to give you as much
Yeah, we
information as I
haven't
can so you can refer to it.
I know you
And I know
do.
it's an awful lot to
And
go
you
by.
have a lot there, and I should know more, but I just,
No, you shouldn't know more. You
Well-
should know less. You should know less of what you don't
Before I know
and
it's
more of what
Thursday
you want to know.
again.
Because remember, when you're looking at a chart, what you're literally doing is you're making sentences. And you have to make a sentence with the chart under the certain auspices by which you can understand the sentence. So the first thing you do is you start with the very pristine state of the planet. What does it say? What does it want you to do? Well, if we did the sun all alone means illumination, doesn't it? How to become illumined. So we all want that. The best way to get it, though, is to go through Saturn. Non-illumination. Not interesting? You always get the opposite of what you want. Well, you do that. And then after that, you modify them. And so when you modify it, you add it like an adjective. Well, if we modify the sun by the adjective of Aries, that tells us one meaning of it, doesn't it? If we modify it through Virgo, then that tells us another idea of it. Then we modify it through Sagittarius, that gives us another concept of the sun. So now we have a pristine sun, which means illuminate. Illuminate the personality, illuminate the process of being a service personality, somebody who wants to give, work, or show that role. And look over there with her sun over there. Or if we want to do Sagittarius, do you want to become brilliant in our own way? Do you want to be an Einstein of your time? So we modified it. Now we take a look at the other side of that. We now need to know the condition of the planet.
Here's our list, so you're reviewing.
You review the condition of the planet that is the ruler of the sign that the sun might be in. And this is done by accidental and it's done by essential dignity. That's a stupid E. Accidental by what house? When we look over here, we see that the accidental placement of the Sun and Venus is the 6th house. Accident because that's the time it happened to take place when we took her birth time. It happened to fall here. It's an accident. Because the Sun is constantly revolving around the zodiac. The minute you go, stop here, that becomes an accident. So when you read ancient texts and they talk about the accident, they're actually meaning the birth time.
So
The
you're
birth
talking
chart.
about a house.
Yeah, the house is the accidental dignity. The essential dignity is the sign it's in. So her accident is 6th house, the essential is Leo. Notice what we did here. The accident is Jupiter in Aries, but the essential dignity is over here with Mars, and Mars is telling us it's detriment. So is Aries in detriment, because the planet also is what the sign is also what the planet is. So then we know by these two dignities what the sign is to the planet. Now we know why, when we see Whitney's chart, the moon and Jupiter are clamoring for more, because it's in detriment. It's trying to improve something here, trying to bring something up to a level, because we all work on our bad planets. Bad planets give us a state and reason of being. We develop our bad planets to the point of success. That is your gateway to success, your worst planet, because you work on it. You want to develop it and bring it forth.
So what's this, sign and planet now, after we do the condition and all that, and now,
The accidental and essential dignity tells us that the sign and planet
oh yes, they
is
go
one and
together.
the same.
I understand, yeah.
And so that tells us by dignity what to expect. So here we see Venus in Leo. Oh, okay, it's in Leo. It's under the sun, which is in its own sign, wonderful, but it's in a house that it doesn't care for,
Yeah.
see? So there's a lot of Pisces in this chart. There's a lot of underlying, the undertone of needing guidance is very strong in this chart.
And that's-
Why do we say guidance?
Because it's a water sign.
Because it's a water sign.
Oh.
Water signs need each bank
It needs
by
to
which it
contain-
can flow
yeah,
to.
Yeah.
So it needs to be guided. All water signs are basically signs that will follow.
And that's why you use Neptune a lot in this chart too.
Well, it's very prominent.
Yeah.
It's a center leg of a
Because-
T-square for one thing. But the Pisces rising tells you right now there's need of guidance.
That's right. Oh, yeah,
It's water.
yeah.
Fire constantly seeks new energy to burn. So that's why if a fire sign moves, it moves forward. It consumes what it has and moves forward to
Needs
the next
more
thing.
fuel,
It constantly seeks more fuel, yes. So fire seeks that. Air, well, it doesn't seek much, it just blows around. And the only time you see air is when you see the trees are moving.
There must be a lot of air
Now,
to
there's
it.
no way you can put air down as a basket case, yeah.
What's on her ninth cusp? She looks for guidance when she looks at the ninth cusp.
It's a Scorpio, I believe. It's a Taurus and a Scorpio.
So again, she's looking to guidance for the Mars.
The Pisces alone calls for the guidance. That is 80% of the chart is that rising sign.
But where does she find the guidance?
She didn't.
What I'm
That's
saying.
just
Where
it.
will she look for?
Her bodyguard, she couldn't. She was totally into herself. There was no guidance. We removed that by putting Jupiter where? In a fire sign. A constantly big need to burn the next bit of fuel we can find. You see, so she's mitigating that. She's kind of like backing it down. But deep back inside, she knows it. Yeah.
Would you say that Mars, because it's the impulse, that she would look to the partner because that's her impulse to
That's
go
what it
there?
is.
And so that would be her impulse for guidance because that's her personality greatest need, or the need of. So she'd look there, and then it would go to the sun, which would be the life force. But in that impulse in the moon's, that's the moon's the lunar mansion, right? The Mars and Sun.
This is the lunar mansion, right?
Yeah, the lunar mansion. So that's the guidance, and then seeking somebody maybe that would help her get over the slings and arrows, or
And of course, Earth sign, well, they're like a rock. You go to them. Earth is like a rock.
yeah.
You know, they don't go anywhere. You have to go to them. This imprint is part of her downfall. Even though the guardian angel says you need to exercise control, here's your problem. Doesn't what do they say? The cobbler's kids always need new shoes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really about what this is
Lunar
about.
mansion is the imprint.
Yeah.
That's-
Yes. Yeah.
I didn't-
The
somebody-
lunar mansion is where is the top planet in the chart? What is the highest ideal that must be served?
Oh, okay.
That's near 24 degrees.
Yeah.
This is how you will probably try to get this achieved. This is probably how you'll try to do it. That's the imprint by which you wish to acquire that ideal. Her ideal happens to be through the Sun and Mars, or Mars to Sun. She did it. She did exactly that. The problem was is that all of the other things that were resting behind her cause other problems.
That's right, there's other things to think.
And the issue is that they both of these are in problematical places. This is in detriment, 6th house.
So you read the Saturn as, her highest ideal, that which she's born to serve. And then here it is in the 12th house, which is kind of hidden, but it's in its own sign, so it's kind of a good Saturn. But it's like she probably felt that she was, I'm just guessing from that, sort of always in prison or imprisoned by something, maybe by an ideal, by her mom, or by, that this is the road she had to go. And I don't know, I'm just wondering.
I like the call. I think you got a good idea here. You have something? A lot of people, when you try to break into show business, you're denied. Getting into show business is one of the hardest things you can do. It's tough because everybody knows in this business that you got a hard road to hoe ahead of you, and you better have the makeup by which you're going to accomplish your success. And believe me, most people who are in the business to recognize that as agents and managers know how to get rid of people pretty quick, because they're not going to play that game. If you can't serve that ideal of win at all costs, they're not interested in you. All right? They know that once you see how hard this is, no amount of money is going to keep you there if you are weak. So you have to be addicted to the good life. You have to be. And you have to personify that to the people that you work with in this industry, the motion picture, music, and television industry. Somewhat the radio, but not that much. So out of the circumstance, because the radio is like a railroad of the entertainment business. But the concept is how powerful and strong are you that you want that good life. And this is what that's about. But once you're in it, you do realize you're in prison. You're under contract. You're under contract for a high sum of money. You're serving the world, and you need to come back again better than you were the last time. Because this old saying, well, that was okay, but what have you done lately?
Yeah.
That's a truism.
Yeah.
What have you done lately that that we're looking at and saying, oh, this makes you good? So this business is a business of entrapment of people who are very talented. And talented people do not like to be entrapped.
I heard that she had a little bit of that concern and very not sure, because she didn't have an entourage of singing, people dancing it was only her voice that she commanded the audience, they were saying. And she doesn't have a lot of other people backing her up with other stuff. Sometimes they have
I hear you. I agree, because your voice is who you are in this business as a singer. And the show, of course, if you can get other singers to sing with you, ain't that nice? But you're it. You're the attraction. Yes. Your name is on the billboard.
And that she sort of
and
had
every new album is enough to give you the worst case of ulcers you could ever want to have.
Yeah. Oh, God.
This is why drugs are so strong in this business and prevalent, because they ease that a bit. That's why they call it the net.
Oh, yeah.
You see. So when you're under this pressure, this
Gee,
enormous pressure,
it's a very good place to go.
you see, suddenly you start feeling this trap, this sense of entrapment. And that's what this may be here, that Saturn in the 12th. She may recognize that opposing the Sun. Because if you look at this carefully, the Sun is in the detriment of Saturn, and Saturn is in the detriment of the Sun.
Oh, yeah.
And so the way that opposition is saying that each don't like the other very well. And so this would say that here. And so look at the leg of the T-square, the part of fortune and Neptune. So that's telling us this may be a way out of this double trap that I'm stuck in. Because an opposition is not fun in any chart. And in horary, it's not worth the effort. And it's almost the same way in your life. It's not worth the effort. But here she's got this insatiable Venus, Jupiter, Sun, Moon.
Yes, at the same time.
That gives her the chutzpah by which she can achieve what she needs to
that
achieve.
Interview she
and that grand trine touching that 10th house pulls it all together for her. See?
Yes.
So this is what we're looking at, and this is what we're developing in the chart, and this is who we see. Okay? That's how you look at these things. what takes you to the result? What in the chart will give you the result that you're looking for? And the story's always there. It's just a matter of tearing it down. Remember I say, always start from the worst place and build your case upward, or start from the best scenario and build your case downward. In this case, you can start with the best scenario, because it's in its own sign, in its own house of joy. It's got it all going. But because it's in the 12th house, and because she has a 12th house sign rising, we sense a feeling of imprisonment here. We sense that, don't we? How can we not? The Jupiter says, yeah, well, okay. Oh, we'll brave that out, because I can move fast enough to stay away from that. But not true.
You can see some of that in the interview with Diane Sawyer.
I didn't see those. I probably will if they come back on.
She
But
mentioned she
don't.
was like her
I
own
don't
worst
watch this
enemy
stuff.
in there.
Well, that's what that says. Her ideals are against who she is, and vice versa. That's her devil. Oppositions are your own devil. So people with oppositions have really a struggle in life to deal with that, because each works against the other, works against it. So remember we talked about the idea of a chart with a square? One or the other will always activate, never both. So whenever you have a square in a chart, either the person is doing this part of that square or they're doing that part of the square. They cannot do both, because electromagnetic energy does not allow a cancellation to happen. You cannot have a cancellation. So anytime you see a square in a chart, like this right here, either this is going to happen or that's going to happen. One or the two will take effect, not both. They can't. Because you cannot cancel an energy, which is what that's doing. You can't cancel that energy and have it be effective. So you do one side or the other of a square. So those of us with squares will always recognize that. It's one side or the other. However, in electromagnetic energy, and this is what we're dealing with in planetary aspects, when they're opposed, what we look at is this. Whatever, that song, whatever you can do, I can do better.
Oh, so they're
That's what the opposition does in the chart. So whoever personifies that will tell you that. And then there's an argument between you and them. Anything you can do, I can do better. I can do anything better than you. No, you can't. No, you can't. Yes, I can. No, yes, you
So
can.
you're going back and forth
It
all the
does.
time?
It will do that. No,
Oh.
it does not go back and forth. It aggravates. It puts the two of them together, and the amount of energy this wants to exert, that will meet it with an equal force. So an opposition will meet it with an equal force.
It's a pull, maybe.
Push, not
Push,
pull.
push.
It's a push two.
Push.
So when these two are pushing two, who blows it out? Neptune. That's what the leg is so important for in a T-square. Because the opposites are pushing at one another, and neither can go anywhere, because they both are doing the same thing. If you had Venus opposed Saturn, that tells you that you have a young person who is full of jokes. And they like to go to this older person, Saturn, and poke fun at them. Now, as long as the older person can hear the jokes and get the fun poke, what do you think he's going to do? He's going to come back with curmudgeon-y stuff and throw it right back at Venus. So the two of them can go bounce back and forth. But Saturn has wisdom. So what do you think Saturn does? It decides to tell Venus the joke. Now Venus goes, wait a minute, that's my role. What the hell am I going to do? That's my role. I'm supposed to be doing that. Now it's the curmudgeon. They'll switch places. That can happen here too.
And
Okay.
that T, that's where it blows
And the
out.
T is the blowout. That's
Yeah.
that's the fulcrum.
Yeah.
It's going to grab that energy too. A lot of people like to use the open leg, the second
Oh,
house
yeah,
in this
that's-
case.
yeah.
Maybe. If a planet is significant to it, it will work. So in other words, if this is in the sign of Scorpio, I need something in Taurus, or I need Venus to tell me why that's working. I can't see it working here. Why? Neptune is squaring Venus. So it's either or, isn't it? I cannot have both Neptune and the second house working together. One or the other, please. And when she does one, the or other doesn't happen. So the Neptune takes over, the Venus goes away for a while. She's still beautiful. Ain't gonna change.
Throughout the life of that person.
Yes, that's it. You never go past your birth chart. I don't care about the progressions or anything else you work with. You never go past your birth chart. That's where you're in. And by the way, your birth chart is what you're going to accomplish by the time you're dead. This is why converse charts are so important. A lot of people love the converse chart. Do it the other way. Not progress it, but converse it. Go the other way.
Does solar fire do that?
I don't know if it does or not. It might. I know there are some that do, but I don't know if solar fire does or not. Bless you. Yeah.
Now, since we kind of started itemizing those, then what would be the next step after figuring out all that? What would you look for?
Make a sentence.
Oh, I see. You make it.
Try to figure it out.
I see.
I got the sun, which you're trying to say, here's my pristine thing. What can I illuminate in my life? Well, when you look at this sun, Venus and the sun in the 6th house, everybody that worked for her loved her. They did. But look at that. You got the sun and the Venus in the 6th house. All her servants are going to take very good care of her.
And that's her house.
Especially the guy she hired as a bodyguard. He really was the sun. In many ways, he was the sun. And Mars was not going to let the negative side of that take place. So he could overcome the Mars, and he did. He was, boy, they used to get in some hellacious fights.
And that was the movie she
I
made,
know, that's
too.
so ironic.
What was,
That is
what was the name of the
ironic.
movie?
The Bodyguard.
The bodyguard, her bodyguard, yeah.
With Kevin Costner.
I wish I'd have saw that now. Is that the story?
Pretty good.
Oh, I'm going to go see it then. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
He's hired to prevent her from being killed.
Yeah, cool.
It's called The Bodyguard.
Well, anyway, so when you look at aspects, they're like electromagnetic energy, because the universe is electromagnetic energy.
I love that way
Yes,
you're
it
describing
is.
it. I think that's so true. I
Well,
love
well
that.
yeah. I mean, this is Ed Jonrowe came up with this because he was an electronic engineer and a heck of a good astrologer. I mean, did I say heck? I meant very good.
Yeah.
Who's this? I missed that.
Ed Jonrowe. A lot of people call him Edward, but it was Edward Jonrowe. J-O-H-N-D-R. No, J-O-N-D-H-R-O. Jonrowe. Yeah. Anyway, he was an electrical engineer, studied astrology, and he figured out that astrology and electromagnetic energy were one of the same thing. So his thesis back in the 30s was just brilliant. If you can find some books by him, I would grab those because you get some good stuff. He wrote a lot of things for the American Astrology Association back in the 30s and 40s. You can find those old, and they may be out. There's some volumes I've seen floating around. They're worth having because all the older astrologers give you their old astrology techniques, which has got nothing to do with the modern stuff. This is straight planetary meaning versus house. So it's really pretty clear and pretty fine cut. It's good stuff if you can find it. So authors in the 30s wrote some good things. Jane was another one, J-A-Y-N-E. He was another good one because he put out some good work. Watson, you probably knew him as Safariel, another good astrologer. As a matter of fact, Safariel loved the idea of declinations. Now we're starting to see the weather show up, aren't we? They could predict the weather. And guess who could predict the weather for W.D. Gann? He would know when the floods were coming. He would know how to bet on the cotton, wheat, and corn. See how you start working the stock market with this idea? Just got to figure the cycles and
when
figure
did
out
it
what's going on.
start shifting and you get these new age type of astrologers coming in?
Well, Alan Leo really was the shift. He started talking about the idea that the Jungian and the Freudian type of astrology might be better off because that way he wouldn't go to jail. So he got out of there. He was a very poor astrologer, but he had written a magazine and he was doing fortunes for people and they were going to sue him. And the second time he went up in front of a judge, he told him, no, this is not how astrology is. It's more like Freud. Well, Freud was a big hit, so everybody started jumping on board. So they all started taking this on, and so by the 30s into the 40s, astrology became psychology, and so they became both. The problem is if you're trying to learn today's astrology, you have to also learn psychology. So if you're learning psychology and astrology at the same time, well, hell, you got a double road to hoe. It's kind of a hard way to go, isn't it? You can apply astrology to psychology. Nobody says you can't, because you can apply astrology to anything. It's a language. You can put it on cars, you know, the mechanical parts of a car, and hydraulics, Saturn, Mars. It's a hydraulic system, Saturn Mars. All of these things you can play with. So you can apply astrology to any system. You can write your own book on it. You want to write a novel? Cast a chart. Your antagonist is the first house. Your protagonist is the seventh house.
Yeah.
And you got a chart. Now, what's the aspects doing and how are they rolling around the chart? There's your story.
Yeah, that's the sentence you start to make. Huh?
Yeah, it's just something to make. But you also have to notice that the moon is going to... Now notice the first conjunction here is with Jupiter. And what's it going to do thereafter? We're very much interested in how that life is going to unfold by just the moon itself. Notice too that Venus will conjunct the Sun at some point, and it too will follow up. Mercury will conjunct Pluto, and it too will make a follow-up. Each of these conjunctions start a centerfold piece of your life. It's a theme. It's like a song going off in a telephone. It's just magnificent.
Sorry.
Okay?
God,
I guess that Mercury, Neptune again.
Well, it's interesting, the moon goes to Jupiter,
Yeah.
and expands, and then the next aspect it makes, I think, is Saturn, a
Sextile
sextile.
Saturn.
So Saturn comes in and like
That's right.
contains
Hopefully.
and
And that Saturn, after the moon Jupiter and the Saturn shows up, that may be a downer point.
yeah.
All of a sudden I'm not heard about. What happened?